DeMeritt. You're watching Mind Blown or listening to Mind Blown, the podcast. And wow, this has gone on. We're on 3 hours for this discussion. Thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully, you break down this information into a few days. It's been a couple months putting this discussion together. So take it in chunks if need be. But this is a very, very important discussion. That's why we're treading carefully, taking our time, and getting this right, because there's so much deception and distortion surrounding the idea of conspiracy theory and conspiracy theories in the mainstream narrative. So let's take a look at the overview again of this discussion. We've talked about all of the first 5. We're on disregard. What is the mouthpiece of the elite of the powers that be through the media, through intelligence agencies, and think tanks, and whatever other influences they have on society at large? What are they disregarding in their narrative surrounding conspiracy theories? So this is a really good thing to look at because it's the most simple and obvious. This went on for years. Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, the scandal, the women who were abused, who were trafficked, who were raped, all of these things, for years, decades, this happened. Imagine if there were more conspiracy theorists that brought attention to this, blew the whistle on it, more media outlets, more intelligence agencies investigating the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, which went on for decades before he was finally busted once and for all. Finally, in 2019, after decades. So look at this. From the moment he first faced criminal charges in 2006, Jeffrey Epstein has been the object of public fascination, conspiracy theories, and outrage. God, this title, U.S. News. So, yeah, all the people they were calling conspiracy theorists for talking about Epstein's pedo island back in the 2010s or even in, the early 2000s were called conspiracy theorists. But guess what? They were right. And if more media and intelligence people had picked up on it, think of how many of those girls could have been saved. Think of how many women could have been saved. There's, I think, over a dozen women at least that have come forward. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's look at a bit at the history. Little St. James, Epstein's private island, quote-unquote pedo island, he owned from 1998 until his death. So, that's 2 decades that this was going on. Here, Maria Farmer blew the whistle on Epstein long ago. She was known she's a visual artist employed by Epstein, known for providing the first criminal complaint to law enforcement, the FBI, in 1996. And then she later described her and her sister's experiences of sexual misconduct from Epstein and Maxwell to a journalist at Vanity Fair in 2002, but the publication refrained from including it in their accounts, of course. So, of course, the media totally disregards this. Conspiracy theorists, the regular people, could bring attention to this, forcing media to cover it or influencing media to cover it, letters to the editor and that sort of thing. Through political, coming together politically, conspiracy theorists can force votes or, vote for people that say, "Oh, hey, I'm going to investigate the Epsteins if you vote for me." Politically, in many respects, conspiracy theorists and conspiracy theorizing could have certainly led to an earlier investigation of this. How can you disregard the the media when they claim, Me Too, the Me Too movement, we stand with women, da 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 da. No, you don't. Absolutely not. To stand with women would have been to investigate this and research it long ago, to shed light on it long ago. They failed, and they continue to fail over and over again, running cover for conspirators. That's the media's role now. For many decades, it has been. The media, by all accounts, was basically under the thumb of the wealthy oligarchy back since like the early 1920s. There was a huge effort to control all the newspapers at the time by like the likes of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. This is in the congressional record. So, yeah, I can't. It's just mind-blowing that that this was allowed. The Epstein scandal was allowed to fester for so many decades. And it just goes to show you there's countless example after example of, conspiracy theorists or conspiracies coming true. Now it's like there's a meme going around where, someone's like, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality? And the other guy says, well, they're puppets, but the other one says, well, these days it's about 3 months. So, again, though, the bottom line is we need to pursue conspiracy theories neutrally. We need to have that balance of skepticism and open-mindedness, research, investigate. We'll get to that shortly here with our conclusion. But the clear and obvious positives, exposing conspiracies. Not exposing them, that's what investigation does, but the clear and obvious positives of conspiracy theorizing is to inspire or to draw attention to the need to investigate and research. Okay? The Epstein-Maxwell example was, that's an excellent example of what we're talking about here. Awareness brings pressure, brings investigation, brings either exposing and rooting out corruption or exonerating people from, accusations, right? Of course, they disregard in the mainstream narrative the official conspiracy theories. Their conspiracy theorizing, which they never call it conspiracy theorizing, but by definition, they routinely engage in conspiracy theories. And a lot of it, in my estimation, is disinformation and misinformation, more CEP, conspirator enabling propaganda. They never turn the mirror around. So we've got, the idea of how they psychoanalyze conspiracy theorists all the time, but there's no reports saying, well, let's look at, we did a survey of top elite hedge fund managers, and we did an analysis involving top CEOs and financiers in Wall Street, and this is our psychological evaluation of those people. No, you don't see that. Of course, could you get a study with those people? Probably not. Might be impractical, but again, there's my idea of having a barrier to political power being some sort of psychological test to root out sociopaths. Really good idea. Perhaps. So, yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look at a video. James Corbett put this together. Let's take a look at this, and I want to watch a couple of clips from it. Basically, this is about cognitive dissonance, and they never talk about this in their psychoanalysis. So you have to go to alternative media to get something like this. So let's check this out. This is from James Corbett, Eye Opener, and he's going to talk about cognitive dissonance. So check this out here. Here we go.
Have you or a loved one ever found yourself saying something like this?
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
Or this?
Yeah, come on. Listen, there has never been a conspiracy in this country.
Or this?
And conspiracy theories are bullshit.
There has never been a conspiracy theory in this What? Are you They're bullshit. Conspiracy theories are bullshit. More ad hominem kind of really kind of low blows. Penn and Teller, God. They had some good stuff, but I mean, that episode on conspiracy theories itself was bullshit propaganda. But let's continue.
Then you might be suffering from cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance? What's that? The theory of cognitive dissonance was first posited by American social psychologist Leon Festinger in 1957 to explain the discomfort and mental stress that we feel when our beliefs, ideals, or values don't match up to reality. Festinger's theory states that when people are in a state of dissonance, that is, when their beliefs or values don't match up with their behavior or experiences, they will adjust those beliefs or values, or even adjust their perception of reality in order to achieve consonance. Furthermore, Festinger showed that people will actively avoid situations or information that might challenge those beliefs and values in order to avoid dissonance. This theory helps us to understand how someone can both deny and admit the existence of a conspiracy in the very same breath.
All right, let's take a look at another clip here.
Counselors have explained these
Now, this is a psychologist that we're going to hear.
Responses are a natural defense mechanism when we are faced with something threatening to our worldview.
So whenever we say, I refuse to believe, we can be sure that the evidence that's coming our way is not bearable and that it's conflicting with our worldview much too much.
Denial protects people from this kind of anxiety.
As I thought about all of these responses, I realized that what is common to every one of them is the emotion of fear. People are afraid of being ostracized, they're afraid of being alienated, they're afraid of being shunned, they're afraid of their lives being inconvenienced, they'd have to change their lives, they're afraid of being confused, they're afraid of psychological deterioration, they're afraid of feeling helpless and vulnerable. And they're afraid that they won't be able to handle the feelings that are coming up. None of us want to feel helpless and vulnerable. So we want to defend ourselves. And the way we often do that is with anger. So then we become angry. And when we become angry, then we become indignant. We become offended. We want to ridicule the messenger. We want to pathologize the messenger. And we want to censor the messenger.
Okay. There you have it. Exactly. Pathologize the messenger and censor the messenger. She hit the nail on the head on those last 2 points because that's what the mainstream narrative has done, especially recently in the last, 5 to 10 years. This narrative has gone from, 0 to 100. Well, it was never 0. It started back in the 60s, but it's really ramped up recently. And yeah, it's psychoanalyzing. They psychoanalyze conspiracy theorists, never turning the mirror around on the elite, those that say no, we shouldn't be conspiracy theorizing. Whoever's spewing this narrative, what is the psychology of them? What is that psychology? The psychology of cognitive dissonance. What they disregard. We can learn almost more about the narrative by what they're not telling us often than what they are showing us. Okay, so let's continue here. And, I need to, there's my notes. So let's see. Let's talk about the kind of categorical disregard, that we see in the narrative is another aspect that I want to talk about. By that, I mean, when they talk about conspiracy theorizing, theorists, there's never the context of law that's brought up. The context of, actual conspiracies happening all the time. People being convicted and tried for conspiracy. And legally, a conspiracy is when you plan to do a crime, but you have to take one small concrete step towards doing the crime for it to be a conspiracy, for you to be charged with conspiracy. You have to take one solid step. So in the realm of ideas, when it's still in the realm of ideas, with no evidence showing that it's going to get out of the realm of ideas, it's legal. But once you step from conspiracy to actualization, then it becomes a crime. But usually people aren't convicted of conspiracy. They're convicted of, depending on how far it gets, the actual crime itself. So keep that in mind. The definition of conspiracy and crime are very, very much intertwined, and sort of those sort of broader ideological reasonings are totally devoid in the mainstream narrative. You can't find out about this stuff in the mainstream narrative. So we need to take a hard look at the intelligence agencies. We need to take a hard look at the sociology of those agencies and other institutions. We need to take a look at motivations and power and the influence of money and the flow of money. Media itself. Of course, the media always disregards their own influence. They always disregard their own corruption. And make no mistake, at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is just a cesspool of corruption. A cesspool of corruption surrounding us. You get that idea from watching the media, but usually you get the idea that, well, this person or this group or this ideology is to blame. But you don't get the sense that the whole system is to blame. The whole system is corrupt to the core. Absolutely a cesspool. There's a huge concentration of power, a huge march towards totalitarianism, and we're in trying times indeed. So I hope this discussion hits the right chord, that we really need to dispel this propaganda. And with that, of course, they're disregarding some of the solutions that we're going to see here. So let's take a look at that now, at a segment I want to be part of my regular show called Putting You and I in the Solutions. So some solutions to conspiracy theories. I love Caitlin Johnstone. She really hits the nail on the head. Here she tweets, "Here's how politicians, media, and government could eliminate conspiracy theories if they really want to. Not with this narrative that they're pushing, but they could stop lying all the time, stop killing people, stop promoting conspiracy theories like Russiagate, stop doing evil things in secret, end government opacity, huge one, and, of course, stop conspiring," is her last point there. So, yes, obviously, stop conspiring, and maybe the conspiracy theories will go away. Do your damn jobs is what I would add to this. Media, FBI, CIA, well, actually, those institutions should probably be scrapped. We should start over. I think it's too corrupt. There's too much corruption. But that aside, do your damn jobs. You are the conspiracy theorists. You are the watchdogs. It's your job to, not my job. Well, I am a journalist, so yeah, it's my job, but do your damn jobs. Do your damn jobs. Part of your job is to be a conspiracy theorist. We're all conspiracy theorists. A solution to this is to stop stigmatizing this phrase. Let's make it normal. Now, I'd like your opinion on this. Let me back up for a sec and ask you, the audience, I might do another poll about this. What do you think should be what do you think we should do? Should we try to come up with another phrase like a conspiracy hypothesis or conspiracy speculation to distinguish between conspiracy theory and let the negative connotation take over completely for that term? See, the problem I see is those neutral definitions. If we got rid of the neutral definitions or influenced, it was Merriam-Webster and Cambridge had those neutral definitions. If we influence them to change those negative, it could actually benefit us by then explicitly creating the need to have a new term for a conspiracy theory that is it's not necessarily it has to be probable. It could be a toss-up, even a 50-50 toss-up. It might be true, might not. We don't have really a good term for that. Again, going back to the lexical gap, we need to solve that issue, and that's a solution I don't know what to do about. I'm not sure if, it'd be awful hard to change the language without a big campaign, but languages change naturally. I'm a linguist. I'm a bit of a linguist, so it's how we use the language that defines it. It's not. There's no governing body or the prescriptivist will say one thing, but it's how the language is used. So I think maybe the best bet is to just have more awareness of the fact that this is a neutral term. It has those other meanings. It can be logical. A theory can be internally consistent. It can be beneficial if it saves girls from being sex trafficked. For God's sakes, look at the reality of this. So we need, of course, stop stigmatizing conspiracy theorists and stop running cover for conspirators. We need individual context. Every conspiracy theory, we need to respect people enough to engage in debate and discussion. Now, I'm going to walk that back right away because, again, we have to tread carefully. If we have all of these Pentagon trolls, this troll army on the internet, we don't know what kind of conspiracy theories that they're making up whole cloth or influencing, behind their keyboards. We don't know what the psyops is there. But rest assured, looking at the history of the CIA and cognitive infiltration and whatnot, rest assured there's tricky business going on, especially in the internet, right now. But individual context is very important. We need to not disregard, but we need to, look at the individual context of each conspiracy theory. At least the ones with more merit, the more legitimate ones. So I want to say that research, investigation, examination, a process. Here's an idea. So the process of discovery, debate, and discussion. So there's 3 Ds there: discovery, debate, discussion. 3 Ds to kind of counteract the narrative of Ds that we saw in this presentation. So to counteract this narrative, let's bring discovery. And discovery meaning research, investigation, and examination. Let's bring debate and discussion to potential, conspiracies in order to dispel them or to or to prove them, at least beyond a reasonable doubt, and to prosecute wrongdoing. So it's all part of making the world a better place. I know what I was going to say earlier. As far as we should look at individual context for conspiracy theories, instead of what they're doing in the narrative is dropping one-liners. They call it inoculation. So this is part of their agenda. They'll throw out a one-liner, about Pizzagate or 9/11, and then they go on, they don't talk about any details. They throw it out there as kind of a straw man. And a lot of times they like to, throw out the flat earth or the more crazy conspiracy theories to kind of muddy the waters and to, do that negative branding that they like to do. And that's kind of the modus operandi that you see. But instead of that, we really need in-depth research. We need to kind of take the helm, take the reins ourselves. There's a responsibility now more than ever for us to do individual research. And this kind of theory has been promulgated before about the fact that the way society is now, the way it's going down with inflation, now you need two people two breadwinners to run a family, to run a household. It's becoming increasingly hard to live. The cost of living going up, wages staying stagnant, more and more money funneled to the top, historic levels of wealth inequality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It makes it harder and harder for people to sit down and do research. And it's so unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate. But I have to sit here and stress that because of the way that the narrative and the media has been consolidated and all of this power is being consolidated and the narrative is tightening, the narrow narrative that we're seeing, it's more important now than ever for us to do our own research and investigation, which is exactly what they're telling us not to do. The famous New York Times article from recently saying, "Don't go down the rabbit hole." The subtitle, "Critical thinking as we're taught to do it isn't helping in the fight against misinformation." Wow. I mean, you can't make this shit up. And it's worse. The article is actually, once you read it, it is just as bad or worse than the title suggests. They're going to go and tell you, don't do any critical thinking, just use Google and whatever turns up, yeah, there's truth for you. That's basically what the article goes on to say, or this quote-unquote expert that they talk to. Just absolute ridiculousness. Anyway, so again with talking about solutions, broad-based, spectrum-based understanding of conspiracy theories, and that's what I illustrate here. We need to understand conspiracy theories as being of varying spectrums and not just all completely false and negative. They can be partially true. Usually they're somewhere in the middle, some level of being partially true. And they can fall on either end of the spectrum or varying points in between. So we need this broader understanding of conspiracy theories stemming from a neutral definition, but understanding those roots of the good and the bad definitions of conspiracy theory, as opposed to just this blanket narrative of conspiracy theory equal bad. Respect for each other is another solution. Let's listen to each other. Let's understand the psychology of our human condition, of the mind, of the ego, and the way that we achieve clarity is to take that step, really understand the ego, talk to each other. This here I kind of illustrate with the balanced approach between arrogance and timidity, between pride and humility. We can be well balanced. We can also, instead of being ignorant or naive. We need to be balanced between skeptical and open-minded. This is a crucial part of the solution, is to keep that balance. And that's kind of what I'm all about here. My moniker, Matt, my former media company, Matt Media, very much connected to the idea of justice, truth, balance, as in the scales of Maat. Egyptology is kind of where it derives from. But that is really a crucial aspect to this discussion, how we need to balance open-mindedness and skepticism when we come across new information. And especially, as the psychologist talked about, especially information that triggers us. That's when you need to say, okay, that's when you need it the most. So you need to go against your nature. If you're triggered by certain information, go against your nature and tread carefully, be open-minded and skeptical at the same time. Take that balanced approach. Look into it to the best of your ability. We need to use methods of debate and even court proceedings. The balanced aspect of getting both sides, that is often lost. We see in the media, we see the perspective of power, mostly very skewed towards power and the status quo. That's the agenda in the mainstream media now. But we need to, when we talk about things, we need to have periods of listening and critical thinking, not just thinking about what you're going to say in your argument. The ability to sit back and say, okay, I was wrong about this, or the ability to recognize that you've been fooled or propagandized is very, very important. And I've been very wrong about so many things that I grew up believing about this country, about, the powers that be, the intelligence agencies, this and that, the establishment you think is like, the pinnacle of good, sitting on this hill, this ivory hill, Washington, D.C., and from up high, their decrees of freedom and democracy and justice echo around the world. That's complete bullshit. It's very, very corrupt. And again, some of the more academic principles that can get us, discussing and debating more professionally. Stay the fuck out of comment threads, for Christ's sake. We need to get away from that. The town square, it has its drawbacks, right? The comment threads. I think more realms of, where we can sit down and talk to each other. Be open to talking to adversaries. Okay, that's very much something I'd like to do on this show, is invite, a broader range of views to come on. I will engage in debate and discussion over these topics with, alternate viewpoints to my own. So we need to balance doubt with confidence. Okay, there's kind of a confidence virus going on right now, where people will gravitate towards, confident sounding voices without, really any kind of, what's the word? How do I say this? They gravitate towards, confident voices like, almost like zombies. They're not, they're it's like the Pied Piper, they're being led along by this, authoritative tone, but they're not stopping to ask questions or to really think for themselves. We have to be honest about our doubts, and we have to embrace our doubts and the fact that, we're all learning. Most of our information is secondhand. we really know very little about the world. We give credence to a lot of different sources and a lot of different people other than ourselves. We weren't there through all of history, up to the time that we can remember. We take the word of others on all of that and so much more that we hear. So we have to embrace doubt and kind of reject or be skeptical of those voices that speak with utter confidence. It's a psychological flaw that we want to be confident. We want to say, we know what's going on in the world. We have a handle on truth. Throughout history, everybody has said, we know exactly, this is the nature of reality. And we know how wrong they were in many cases throughout history. Well, likely it's the same way today. But balance confidence with doubt. Don't be, take confidence for yourself, not fictitiously or that's not the word I was looking for, not flippantly. Earn it. Feel it, because you've done the research, you've done the investigation. That's how you need to earn that confidence. Make it be real. So, but, be human about your doubts. And that way we're not going to be led like sheep to the slaughter, because the confident sounding voice is saying, oh, over here, the meat packing facility, that's where, that's where you need to go. Come this way. Humility with pride is another point of balance that we need to keep in mind. Again, I illustrate that here. Arrogance and pride. Arrogance is very on the red end of the spectrum. You don't want to be arrogant or too prideful. You don't want to be too humble or timid. Have self-respect. That's the well-balanced approach. Of course, evidence, let's balance between underinterpreting and overinterpreting evidence when we look at that. And our definition of conspiracy theory, let's keep it neutral. It doesn't deserve positivity, absent research investigation. It doesn't deserve negativity for the same reason. A theory is a theory. We need to investigate it. Think of it as a hypothesis. Let's approach this scientifically. That's another point of disregard, by the way, is scientific methods and the approach to how we deal with certain epistemological phenomenon like conspiracy theories. We need to, take a more scientific approach. We need to, investigate, debate, discuss. That's the nature of science. We look into it. We don't spout these dogmas like the media does constantly. Anyway, let's move on to the final point I'd like to make here. Let's dispel conspiracy theorist as a label. It's an empty term. We're all conspiracy theorists. And that's what this is meant to illustrate here. We're all conspiracy theorists. And from the bare minimum, we all know that conspiracy theories have happened throughout history, and millions of them are going on, big and small, at any given moment, at any time. We're all conspiracy theorists, and damn straight we should be. We should be conspiracy theorists. Let us not forget here that conspiracies happen all the time. Tax conspiracy, the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy, sexually abusing minors. Of course, here is what I wanted to get to, the Nuremberg trials. Nazism was a conspiracy. We need to guard against future genocides, future conspiracies. We need to guard against that, because we could be the lambs led to slaughter. For instance, let me talk quite frankly. There's a lot of eugenics influence in the halls of power. Historically, eugenics has been a thing. Did it go away, or did it just go under the surface where we don't see it? We have to be vigilant. That's all I'm saying. I'm not making a claim that they're conspiring to kill us all. Although it was written in stone in the Georgia Guidestones that the human population should be kept under, 5 million people? 500 million? I don't remember the exact number. But, of course, to realize that number, 7 billion people, some 7 billion people would have to die. So, anyway, stay vigilant. And I want to thank you for checking out this presentation on conspiracy theory, breaking down the narrative. Please share this work. I'm going to do, a couple of hashtags to go with it, so it's easier for you to get the word out. If you see propaganda in the mainstream about conspiracy theories, feel free to share it. Feel free to tag this presentation and share links to it in comments of those, comments of that kind of mainstream work. Share with me the work. If there's something you would like me, a certain article that you want me to break down, a specific article, I'd be happy to do that in later episodes of Mind Blown. And by the way, check me out on my Patreon. Just getting started here, so it's really important that I source some funding from you generous people out there. I would love to do this as a kind of a primary I'm a musician, so Nostin the Machine. Check out my musical work. I have a Patreon for that and a Patreon for Mind Blown. So with the music, I like to inspire consciousness. For the journalism, I like to inform or make us aware, expand consciousness in a way. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff on this show. Conspiracies indeed, but many, many topics under the sun. This is a comprehensive show. In a later episode, I'll introduce myself more thoroughly and the show Mind Blown, what to expect. We'll talk about a little bit of that at the end of, I think, the next episode. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for joining me, and peace out, everybody. Love you. Bye.